In this analysis, I will talk about the anatomy of an anti-hero by exploring the similarities and differences between Taxi Driver and Joker. Taxi Driver, a 1987 film directed by Martin Scorsese, and Joker, the 2019 hit directed by Todd Phillips, portray highly complex individuals as protagonists who are going through life and trying to find a missing piece. One searching for inner passion, while the other for a place in society. Both the films portray emotions and motives in subtle details with slightly different narratives. Taxi Driver revolves around Travis Bickle, a strange, disturbed insomniac who serves as a taxi driver in New York City. He haunts the streets at night, observing a never-ending matrix that reeks of filth and conflict. Eventually, Travis becomes obsessed with the idea of saving the world, as though fulfilling his life's purpose. On the other hand, Arthur Fleck, the protagonist of Joker, is a failed comedian who is constantly disregarded and bullied by society. In the day, he works as a clown for a hiring company, and at night, he roams the streets of Gotham City, making a slow descent towards a dark path of criminality. Both of these stories are set in the midst of chaotic cities with a certain social hierarchy, putting emphasis on the poor while scorning upon the rich. And in the middle of this urban disarray, there is a conflicted outcast, observing it all. The primary movie genre that applies to these films is psychological thriller, a genre that revolves around the psyche of its characters. It lays emphasis on one's moods and motives, often presenting them in cinematic or artistic ways, going beyond the surface level. Both these films can also be a part of the neo-noir genre, as they take a lot of inspiration from this category. Neo-noir films have dark plot lines that thrive on crime, drama, paranoia, and alienation. They have a distinct cinematic style of breaking monotony to convey unease or conflict by using unbalanced framing, Dutch camera angle, striking use of light and shadow, and sound and music to convey a certain effect. Along with that, neo-noir films often have an anti-hero. An anti-hero is a character archetype that does not abide by the standards of the conventional hero. They are often portrayed as complex people with an ambitious sense of morality. Anti-heroes have a dark side to them, but they are often redeemable and are likely to be led by good intentions. The anti-heroes in Taxi Driver and Joker are pessimistic or harsh realists, loners, aloof, involved in crime, and socially unaccepted or frowned upon. In an effort to emphasize on the complexities of these narratives, Scorsese and Phillips have used colors in an extremely calculated manner. For example, the use of the color red in Taxi Driver. The two reds in Taxi Driver present a deep meaning about two characters in Travis's life. Betsy is a witty, glamorous campaign volunteer for presidential candidate Palantine. Betsy's red is lush, graceful, and bold. It is usually presented at daytime, paired with an equally posh white. While Iris, the 12-year-old prostitute that Travis eventually goes on a quest to save, is associated with a red that is filthy, clumsy, and dark. It is shown mostly at nighttime, placed carefully with a dark yellow. The connotations of the two reds link to Travis's two realities, and thus his two sides. While one is about positive pretense, the other is about harsh realities. One is about structured nobility, the other about dirty work. Eventually, Travis's personality consists of both these sides, stating how red is inseparable from him. In Taxi Driver, colors help us understand Travis's surroundings. But in Joker, colors help us gain an insight into Arthur's mind. The two most prominent colors in Joker are a distinct blue and yellow. These two particular shades can be seen in most scenes. The warmth of yellow and the coldness of blue hints at Arthur's dilemma and how he is torn between his two realities. The effect of the color can also depend on the hue, lighting, and neighboring colors. Like in this scene, where Arthur is daydreaming about being on the Murray show while watching it. In the dream, Arthur is happy and stable. In complete contrast, his reality is much more vulnerable. In frames where both yellow and blue are shown, there is evidently a visual dynamic created. On the color wheel, these shades of yellow and blue are exactly opposite to each other, which is what makes the contrast so striking. This particularly denotes the two conflicting sides of Arthur that are at play during the course of this film. Both the taxi driver and Joker's usage of colors also highlights the defining characteristics of anti-heroes, which revolves around duality, their two sides, and how both of these are an inherent part of them. The camera angles, especially their steadiness, gives us a lot of information about the mood of the scene. For example, let's go back to the scene we discussed earlier. Here, in Arthur's imagination, the camera is steady, but when we go back to reality, the camera is shaky. This further amplifies the increasing instability of Arthur's mind. It also makes the audience make note of Arthur's condition, as it forces the viewers to be entwined in an uncomfortable situation. The editing in both Taxi Driver and Joker sets the tone for their narratives. In Taxi Driver, the editing is minimal. This makes sense considering how slow-paced movies were more common during the 70s. Joker, on the other hand, is far more fast-paced. This is expected considering the rise of fast-paced movies in recent years. The anatomy of an anti-hero and how it has evolved. The anti-hero is a character archetype that has truly peaked in recent years. If Travis Bickle was a pop culture starting point for the anti-hero archetype, then Arthur Fleck is the newest rendition. The evolution of this character type, however, has changed not only how we view grey characters, but also how we respond to them. These movies present a very different idea of the anti-hero. While watching Taxi Driver, the viewers are more likely to feel discomfort because of Travis's strange behavior, as compared to Joker, where the viewers are more likely to feel sorry for Arthur. Taxi Driver creates a perfect imbalance, a sense of grim disturbance that resonates with the audience. In Joker, this remains, but the reaction is different. Phillips makes an effort to present Arthur as a sympathetic victim who turned evil due to the perils of society. But Scorsese leaves no room for sympathy. The narratives of Travis and Arthur point at the two potential directions of an anti-hero. In the climax, Travis murders the brothel owners and saves Iris, while Arthur murders multiple people throughout the movie, crowning himself as the Joker. Both are eventually hailed as heroes in context to their films, but for different reasons. The glorification of Arthur is what largely separates these two anti-heroes. The escalating exaltation of morally questionable people shows the evolution of this archetype and how it is idolized through Arthur Fleck. This makes sense considering how favoritism of bad people has become a trend in cinema. While back in the 70s, a protagonist was more likely to turn out to be good, even if he was an anti-hero. The anatomy of an anti-hero is an ever-changing cycle of our personal response to complicated individuals. The anti-hero is a character that dares present humans as the flawed, imperfect people that we are. And arguably so, No one has done this better than Martin Scorsese and Todd Phillips.